So I had a lot of issues with multi-meshes when I first started using them. They didn't really make any sense. Most of the tutorials were too complex or lacking the basics of how they function. This tutorial has been created to further complicate the subject. I wanted to find a suitable candidate for a mesh when an object of incredible power appeared.
The Cobra Cube.
Alright, so we're going to get a multi-mesh going with our Cobra Cube as fast as possible. We're going to put our Cobra Cube in, and all we need to do is make this local. We need to go to our cube, go over here, and we need to make this unique. That's making the array mesh unique, and then after that's made unique, we can save it. So we save our array mesh as cube, and let me call it Cobra Cube, and we'll call that mesh. We're saving that in our cube directory, and then we can actually delete this. We don't really need it. Then we can go here and add our multi-mesh instance 3D. Now we need to add a new multi-mesh that'll fill that property out. Then we can change this to 3D. We're in the 3D space. Our instance count is how many instances we're going to make, so we'll change that to 1. Our visible instance count as at -1, that means there'll be nothing. At 0, there'll still be nothing. At 1, we're going to have our 1 visible. Our mesh, we now have to select, so we're going to go to load, we go to cube, and there's our Cobra Cube. We open that up, we can see it's in there. Nothing showing up here, and that's because we need to tell our cubes where to basically show up in code. So we're going to add a new script there, and we'll call it Testaruni script. So we're going to do this with 1 line of code, and we're going to make them appear. All we need to do is access properties over here. So we got our multi-mesh. We're going to access that multi-mesh, and we'll say set instance transform. And first thing we need to do is add the instance index, which is 0, because computers are bad at math and start counting at 0, and we only have 1 instance, so that's going to be index 0 in that array. The next thing we need is a transform 3D. And so a transform 3D is a documentation right here, is a matrix basically telling Godot where something is in the game world. So you're familiar with this if you use 3D. This is your transform. This right here is your basis. The basis is your rotation and your scale. And then the entire transform is the basis plus the position, also known as the origin. So that's what we're going to pass in here, is a transform 3D. We'll add quotations, not quotations, whatever the fuck you call those, I can't remember. Yeah, and then we're going to add a basis, just a empty basis in here, because it's not going to be rotated or anything, so we can just add an empty one. And the scale is also going to be the same, so that's all fine. And then we need to tell it where it's going to be, so this is just a basic position. So a vector 3, and we'll say 0, 0, 0, make it right in the middle. So let me pull this out so you can see the whole thing. And I'll close that. And so, yeah, that's the whole line right there. So we'll go ahead and save that. I'll get rid of this because we don't need it. And let's run it and make sure that works. So there we go. We have our 1 cube, our 1 Cobra Cube right there. And I hope Josh is doing well. That mead is not safe to drink. So.
Plus, this is already like practically almost full. When you're adding bacon to your mead to make a bacon flavored mead, you want the bacon bits to do it. There should be enough sugar for our juice and our yeast to ferment. Stir that around.
Okay, so I just kind of wanted to talk more about how you would manipulate the multi-mesh instance all around and rotate it and scale it and stuff like that through code. So your rotation and your scaling is going to come from your basis. And we were passing in just an empty basis by doing this basis empty like that, and that would pass in a basis that looks just like this. So this is our X quaternion, our Y quaternion, and our Z quaternion, which are units that represent, I believe, 4-dimensional space. I watched a YouTube video on it. I really don't understand it, but essentially what it is these are complex coordinates that tell us where our rotation and scale are oriented in a 3D world, and computers use these units because it's much faster to process than doing it, I guess, the human-friendly way. So what does that mean for us trying to manipulate stuff in the game world? Well, I'm just going to go ahead and run it and show you what this does now, and you can see that our basis is different on all of these. On some of them it's negative, on some of them it's positive, but we haven't changed any of the numbers. They're all ones, and they're all in this same one on the X, one on the Y, and one on the Z. Just the negatives and positives have changed. And also the position of where they are down here, our last vector we add, our position has changed as well. So we run it now, and we can see that all of them are now rotated differently. Some of them are mirrored, and that is because they're all rotated around quaternion units. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's how I'm gonna fucking say it. But yeah, so it gets a little complicated. It's like, how do I turn this thing 45 degrees? I'm not exactly sure. And so what would happen if we were to, say, put like a 5 in here? Well, our shape will scale with that. So that one you can see on the X coordinate there, it's 5 units. And so what would happen if we scaled it in all directions 5 units, right? So it is kind of confusing because you think, oh, well, the numbers don't have a 1-to-1 correlation, because why can't I just, like, say 90 degrees rotation, you know? Well, I'm not exactly sure. So when I figure that out, I'll post about it, but for right now, this is just the basics. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to share that, and here we are printing out the basis of our multi-mesh node. So we're just printing out where this is in our 3D space, and you can see we have just a regular basis which is pointing in the up direction, and then we have our position, which is 0, 0, 0. So if you have any problems, you can always go here and just hit basis, and then if you want to look at more stuff for Godot, this is what I looked at. You can scroll down. The 3D stuff is down here at the bottom. Pretty difficult to learn, and then there's also this stuff here, which is fun.
Hey, Mark.
Shout out to Adam Lansley.